types of double dip assets. Pensions, that really, as we'll see later, is where this whole issue of double dip started. And a pension is a unique asset in that, in theory at least, distributions which are income will decrease or reduce the value of the asset. It's effectively a wasting asset.
And this is kind of at the heart of the overall double dip concept from my perspective, is that if we utilize an income approach to value for a business, which we do in most cases because we don't have quality market data to apply an effective market approach, and we assume that that asset holds its value in the future, like almost all capitalized earnings and DCF models do when we're valuing businesses, okay, we're assuming that that asset actually appreciates over time. And so for the life of me, I can't figure out why the income that business asset generates would be considered a double dip, because we assume this perpetual life, and it's generating a return on the asset as it goes forward. It's no different than, say, a commercial real estate building that we're sitting in here right now. And the only differences between an office building that generates $1 million in income and a business that generates $1 million in income is the office building is going to be worth $10 to $15 million using, say, an 8 to 10% cap rate, and the business is going to be worth, if it generates $1 million, typically somewhere in the $4 to $5 million range. That's the difference.
There's another difference too, and that is you don't have to work that building, whereas with a business certainly you do. So there's got to be some type of return for labor and effort, and
and we're going to talk about that, because I think that's where some of these problems arise in real life cases, depending on the evidence that the court hears. But when we have an asset that depreciates over time, okay, then we're talking about the future cash flow, actually at least a portion of it being a return of the asset, and then the double dip, in my mind, as an expert, is totally in play.
And to add to that, Rob, if you have a situation where we're using a DCF, but because of the circumstances, maybe you can't use it, maybe you can't add a terminal value. Maybe the exit strategy is turn the lights off at the end of the particular day, and that's it. The point of these next couple slides really are to point out that there are states that would look at things the way Rob suggested about double dipping, and I agree, with a retirement plan. And there are other states that believe that it's not a double dip, that it's permissible. States perhaps were in cases, Virginia, Maryland, California, you have it here for a later reference if you want to read it, but they believe it's permissible for double dipping. Whereas other states, Minnesota and New Jersey, for instance, believe that's inappropriate. And the ruling on the Jersey case in this is I think, to me, very persuasive. And they simply say, we hold today the payments generated by pension benefits that were previously distributed are not income for support. Exactly what Rob had commented before, where we think there's the clear argument of a double dip. So I think that's a very different situation than in some cases businesses. Now, when we then move in, I'm sorry.
Can I pop in real quick on the
Sure.
case law? So Innis is not how all of the courts look at income from pensions. One of the things that's very, very important to note, and it always comes up in cases on modification of maintenance, is somebody will have been divorced and they divided property, and one of the things they divided was the value of a pension, and let's say the wife received $10 for her half of the pension, and then the husband retires and he says, I'm not making money anymore, and so I'm just getting my pension, and the wife says, you just retired, your earned income is not part of my maintenance, you're asking for a reduction in maintenance now, and I object. And the courts in more jurisdictions than not say that's perfectly fair. I know we divided it. I know it was you got cash or the wife got cash for that pension, but at this point, that was then, this is now. And what is fair is, A, the statute says that pension income is income for maintenance purposes, and B, when we divided your property, that was for like your past marital stuff, but when we look at maintenance, we're talking about future. We're talking about apples and oranges. We're talking about maintaining the wife's lifestyle. And even though we valued it and we divided it, it's still income now, and it's about future and it's about lifestyle, so it's different from what the property division was, and therefore there is no double dip.
I think also you've got to consider when that retirement or when that change in circumstances occurs. If it's prior to normal retirement and there's no health issue or whatever, then I think there's a better argument for that. If someone has worked to or beyond normal retirement age, I think that argument is weakened then. And it's not unreasonable for that business owner, professional, or wage earner to stop working and have a reduction in support based on change of circumstance.
But that's not a double dip argument. I completely agree with you. Though it's not a double dip argument, it's a what's fair now argument. Should husband just get to retire because he wants to the detriment of wife, as opposed to double dip?
True. Okay, on this slide, should the situation be the same? I think a very detailed answer is maybe. And that is that when I look at a business, I first look to see what generates the income from this business. Is this a large business making profit off of a pool of labor and capital or capital equipment versus a small professional practice that's making income only off the efforts of perhaps the owner or the owners, as the case may be? And how transferable is that value? And is that value, the transferability or the value of that ownership interest, is that limited by a well-exercised agreement where partners or shareholders have been bought out? They've been bought out there's a history of them being bought out for what the agreement states will be bought out for. I think that's a very different situation than if you have a freely transferable, very saleable commercial entity that there's high demand for. So I think there's two very different situations, and the issue of double dip may come into play there on the basis of transferability and the ability to release the value in that asset that has been calculated to exist. Professional licenses, you've got to look at that issue of it being merged. I don't know that a license in a long-standing professional has value outside of the practice itself. And then we talked at length about stock options before, so I won't go into that. I won't double up on that.